You agree with Hillary Clinton more on these issues than you do with Donald Trump.
Well, again, these issues aren't two choices. I mean, in essence, I
well,
disagree
but the election is.
Yeah, well, but on foreign policy, the notion that there's only two choices forward are wrong. On the one hand, I mean, so Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State for Barack Obama, who has pursued foreign policies that I found counterproductive. For example, the unwillingness to engage earlier in Syria, when I argued that if we didn't, the vacuum that would be left behind would be filled by radical jihadists.
But she was arguing what you're arguing. She was arguing for arming the rebels. Look, I don't want. You're never going to tell me that you endorse Hillary Clinton. I know you oppose her.
Well,
but I'm just saying your worldview on foreign policy is much closer.
Well, but
to
she's not just running for Secretary of State. Embedded in her policies will also be a series of domestic policies that I disagree strongly on. For example, I'm strongly pro-life. It's something I deeply feel passionate about. And on that issue, I'm more aligned with Donald Trump than I am with Hillary Clinton by far. So I think you have to take the package holistically, not just on one given issue.
Fair enough. Going forward, Mr. Trump is going to meet with Republican leaders, including Paul Ryan, on Thursday. What is he going to need to do to get more Republicans on board? More specifically, what is he going to need to do to get you to say, I support Donald Trump to be president? Because you're not saying that. You say, I signed a pledge and I will honor the pledge. But you're not saying the words, I support Donald Trump.
Let's begin with the premise that this has been a very unusual election cycle, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And so I don't know if there's a well-established roadmap forward in terms of how to do that. I think significant public policy differences will remain between now and the election. But I do think it's smart that he's coming to D.C., that he's meeting with the leaders of our party. And I think that's part of that process. And we'll see where we are in 2 months, and 3 months, and 4 months. I'm not asking him to change his position on it. I'd like him to change his position on some issues. But I think he has won the primary based on a given set of things that he has stood for. In my sense, he's going to continue to stand for those things.
What about his tone and temperament? I know you've objected to many things he's had to say. I don't think you cared for it when he seemed to be making fun of a disabled reporter. I don't think you cared for it when he said of prisoners of war, specifically targeting John McCain, but more broadly, I like people who weren't captured. These are the kinds of things that he has been saying. His admirers say he tells it like it is. Just last week, the morning he was about to clinch the whole thing, he started talking about a report he saw in the National Enquirer suggesting that Ted Cruz's father, Rafael, was somehow linked to the Kennedy assassination. I'm guessing you don't believe that that's true.
That I don't believe what's true.
That Rafael Cruz had a role in the Kennedy assassination.
Of course not. But beyond it, I would say to you that, look, as I said before, when I ran for president, I had an 11-month campaign. I repeatedly pointed to the differences and the reservations that I had about the way he was conducting his campaign. Those are on the record. They're there for people to see. My position on those issues are clear, and they remain, as I've made abundantly clear today and yesterday.
But does he need to change his tone? Does he need
look, I think it would make it easier for him to get elected if he did. But ultimately, he's going to. My sense is he is going to continue to be who he is, and that's who the Republican voters nominated. And I respect that decision, although obviously it wasn't the one I wanted. And that's the direction we're moving.
When you traveled in Qatar and Turkey and Iraq recently, did you hear from Muslim leaders? Did you hear from Muslim soldiers who were fighting ISIS? Did it ever come up? Comments that Mr. Trump made when he proposed, for instance? No?
I don't think comments, but I think there's a tremendous amount of interest and curiosity in what's happening in American politics. They're following it. But one of the things I will say, and this is now important now that you're the nominee of our party, I would say there is now responsibility behind these words and these statements. They're no longer just the statements of 1 out of 17 candidates or even the leader in the polls. They are the statements of 1 of 2 people who are going to be the next president of the United States. And my sense is that Donald either has or will in time accept the gravity of that. I hope he will, because it does matter what you say. It does have an impact on what's happening around the world. I heard, and perhaps it was just given the setting that we were in, curiosity about the direction. People wanted to know what was going to happen. But I didn't hear those concerns, although they may exist. I didn't hear them.
As a prominent Cuban American, one of the other concerns that has been voiced by other Republican Latinos is comments that Mr. Trump has made about Latinos, specifically about Mexicans. I believe you might have seen his Cinco de Mayo tweet in which he was seemingly trying to make amends, a picture of him with a taco bowl saying, I love Hispanics. Is that going to be enough?
A tweet? No, I mean, of course not.
What is he going to need to do to win at least 25% of Latino voters?
Look, I think that, like any campaign, Hispanic Americans, first of all, are a diverse group. This notion that there's a Hispanic American bloc that votes monolith is inaccurate. Second, I think they care about the issues all Americans care about. They're worried about ISIS. They're worried about our safety and security. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about the stagnation of wages. You have to address all of those issues. There is no doubt that for any group in this country, tone and temperament matters. And that's why I've expressed my reservations about it in the past. And so we'll see what happens over the next few months.
What did you think when you saw that tweet?
I actually didn't see it. I think I was overseas when that came out.
You didn't see it?
No, I think I was overseas, so I may have missed it.
It was Cinco de Mayo.
I saw it subsequent to. What did I think? I mean, I mostly caught the media chatter about it. And after 11 months of this thing, I'm not surprised by anything that comes up on Twitter anymore.
I know you wanted to talk about this, or at least your campaign, your staffers thought you might, and that is this, it's being put out there by the Cruz campaign that they tried to get you to be his running mate earlier in the process in March. They reached out and they had polled, and it seemed like a Cruz-Rubio ticket with him at the top of the ticket would have been able to stop Donald Trump, and they fault you for not taking that opportunity.
Well, look, I don't know who put that out there. I talked to Ted the day after the Florida primary when I had dropped out. He didn't say a word about VP or anything of that nature. I also, quite frankly, think it's an unfortunate story, given Carly Fiorina worked really hard for his campaign. She did a lot of hard work, and the story kind of implies that she wasn't their first choice. I think that's unfair to her. And whoever put that out really was a classless move when it comes to Carly. But I think that story is largely inaccurate in terms of any outreach to me.
Okay. I mean, the people who told me the story, I'm the one that wrote the story, said that like they had reached out through emissaries and it came back to them that you were not interested.
Well, there may be people out there who were talking about it, but I spoke to Ted personally the day after the election, and that topic never came up.
Would it have worked?
I don't believe it would have. I don't think you win by doing those sorts of things. The bottom line is, whether we like it or not, Donald has been able to tap into a sense in this country of millions of Americans that they're being left behind by massive transitions in our economy, compounded by an economic meltdown in 2008, compounded by 8 years of Barack Obama's policies that have left Americans feeling that America is weaker in the world. And he was able to tap into that successfully to become the nominee. And you know, that's the reality of what we face. And I'm not sure that after a certain point in this campaign, anything would have stopped that.
Are you saying definitively you would never serve as his vice president if he asked?
Who's that?
Donald Trump. I'm sorry, Donald Trump.
Because we had just asked.
Right, sorry.
So, no, I mean, he needs to appoint someone to be his vice presidential nominee that more fully embraces the things he stands for.
Meaning, no, you're not interested.
Absolutely.
No,
yeah, and again, to be frank, I mean, I've never had those conversations with anyone in his campaign. So I'm not saying that anyone's offered it to me or has been suggested to me. I'm just saying to you that I believe he would be best served by someone who more fully embraces the things he stands for, and that's certainly not me.
You are a young man. You are still not going to run for re-election for your Senate seat. It's not too late to file. The filing deadline's in June.
It is to me, yeah.
So you're not going to do that. There's still time. You could run for governor in 2 years. You could run for president in 4 years. You could become a lobbyist. What is next?
Well, I'm not going to become a lobbyist, and I'm not going to run for governor in 2018. You know, I think we're going to finish strong here in the U.S. Senate. I love the work I'm doing, and we're going to be able to get some meaningful results before this is all said and done. I care a lot about the Zika issue. I'm disturbed that members of my own party are standing in the way of fully funding a response to what's an emerging public health crisis. I hope we can get some action on what's happening in Puerto Rico. I'll continue to be engaged in these national security issues that await us. And then, you know, I'll become a private citizen, and I'm looking forward to that. I've always wanted to do things other than politics. You know, being in public service is what I do. It isn't who I am. And I've enjoyed it. I'm open to a future in public service if the right opportunity is there for me and for my family. And it's something I feel passionate about, but I don't have any defined plans beyond January of 2017.
And last question is how are you doing? I know in one sense you've gotten to spend more time with your wife and your 4 kids. Yeah. So that's probably good, but it's rough to lose a presidential election.
But let's keep perspective here. I just came back from Iraq, where 2 days earlier, protesters had breached the green zone and were trying to beat up parliamentarians in Iraq. So when we talk about dysfunction and bad politics in Iraq, it's because you might die. When you talk about politics in America, it's you lost an election, you get to go back and work in the Senate and do interviews like this and go on and spend time with your family. So presidential campaigns, when you run, you know it's hard to win. I feel very proud of the campaign we ran. It didn't have the outcome that I wanted, but I'm proud of the work we did, and we'll see what the future holds.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Senator Ted Cruz is speaking live right now in the Senate. Let's take that live.